All right, we're going to wait just a second until the room populates. People are filing in. Welcome, everybody. I can see the attendees are filing in. Lots of folks today. It's going to be a super interesting and relevant topic as well. And we'll talk about how relevant in just a moment. If you're just joining us, we're waiting for the room to fill. Stand by. All right, I think we are good to go. Got a good group of folks. All right, a couple more joining here. Let's see a few more coming in. Stand by just a moment longer. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So, hey, welcome everybody. Hopefully you're having a good day today. My name is Chris DeRozier, and I'm the Security Director for Business Development here at Tech Data. With me today is Brian Graff, Senior VP of Business Development at Abacode, and he'll be presenting on a super fascinating and relevant topic today. Today we'll be discussing delivering MCCP solutions to your customers through Abacode and Tech Data. So, what's MCCP? You're going to learn all about that today. It's a great solution. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So real quickly, Chris, I help IT channel partners build security businesses all day, every day. I just love working with each one of you. And I've got a whole team of security vendor agnostic business development folks, managers and consultants. And through our security professional services program, we offer today this solution from Abacode. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian here in just a second, Brian, and he can talk about the rest of the offer. So Brian, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Graff, Senior Vice President of Business Development here at Abacode. I have been in this business for about 15 years now. I started off in the IT audit and compliance industry at KPMG, doing Sarbanes-Oxley and SOX audits and SOC 1, SOC 2 audits. Moved on into ISO, FedRAMP, all types of security standards, performing those assessments, and then moved on to consulting and actually helping larger organizations get through those types of audits. After that, I also got farther into the cybersecurity as my career went along. I've served as a CISO. I've been consultant for a few different organizations, and now here at Abacode, I was brought in to lay over compliance over the cybersecurity practices that they already offered, and that started kind of the journey of this company from a traditional MSP to an MSSP to MCCP, which we're going to talk about, now. Next slide. So what is MCCP? You've all heard about MSSPs. They've been around for a while, which are organizations that provide usually VSOC and some kind of SIM management. They're kind of like the ADT for your business systems. They're an alarm system. They let you know, your door's open, your window's open, somebody's trying to get in. That's pretty much all they do. Current MSSPs also provide some managed detection and response. They will provide some automatic response to certain issues. They are a little bit more compliance focused, but still they're focused on detection and security. What we do here at Abacode is we do the traditional MSSP services, but we combine that with compliance, because compliance really dictates everything that you should do from a security standpoint. And because of that, it should dictate everything we do in terms of services we provide to our customers. So making sure that not only are we providing security that is required to protect your data and your systems, but doing so in a manner that you are compliant, and if you're going under audits or you have regulators coming in and asking for assurance of these programs, we make sure that that's also in place. You can do next slide. So when we talk about managed compliance and cybersecurity, we're talking about implementing an entire system. And this is what caused that evolution from an MSSP all the way into MCCP, because as a security organization, we realize we're doing detection and response, but this is in response to either a customer request or a regulatory request. There's a reason why we're doing this beyond just security. There was a request somewhere, and that comes from a compliance standard. It comes from customer requirements. It comes from federal government in terms if you're dealing with CUI or agency data. There's the security mechanisms you have to put in place, and then there's a compliance that tells you how you have to do that, how you have to manage those programs, how you have to report to those programs. So you don't want to just go in and start implementing security processes. You want to make sure you implemented a holistic program. So instead of just offering you tools, what Abacode and Tech Data, our program entails is a design, implement, manage process, to where if you're just starting off right now, you've got zero security, you've never even heard of cybersecurity, or you have a mature program, you still want to, the process is the same. We'll go in, perform a design assessment, framework and gap assessment, not only a risk assessment, but an assessment against a framework. No matter what industry you're in, there is a framework that fits your organization, and it's a list of everything you already have to do. So, and that's been accepted by industries. It's used by auditors to audit IT systems. So you might as well use the listings that are already out there. So we design the programs based on your services and the compliance standards that you have to comply with. We implement those based on a risk-based approach, based on the assessment that we performed, and then we can manage those services, not just the SIM and VSOC, the monitoring, vulnerability scanning, anything you need from a security standpoint, policies, procedures, and plans, control process, and audit artifact collection. All these things are just beyond just the normal detection and response for breaches, but they are still required for audit standards like CMMC, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. You can go to next slide. So how do we manage compliance and cybersecurity? Well, we have a compliance portal where we track all of your controls based on that risk assessment. We'll draft out what your current controls are, what your current gaps are. That will culminate in a risk register. And we build out your program based on the gaps that you have. We go into organizations that are starting from square one, don't even have a security officer or someone that is assigned security. And that's the best way to make sure nothing security relevant ever gets done, is not assigning it to anyone. So most standards always say there has to be a security officer, there has to be a security department, someone has to be told that they are in charge of this. And then beyond that, you build your program based on the current controls you have in place and the gaps that are showing up. Again, we go to customers that have been running programs for years, and we use the services and the processes they've already implemented if they already work and they're compliant. We want to build based on what you have, use your strengths, and supplement where you're missing resources or personnel. Move to the next slide. So like I said earlier, if there's an audit standard, I've probably been involved in an audit for it, either as an auditor or as a compliance personnel helping a customer get through an audit. Everything from SOC 2, PCI, I was an ISO lead auditor. I helped stand up one of the first FedRAMP 3PAO programs, ISO 27001. No matter what compliance initiative you have, they all have similar program requirements. They all require that not only do you put the security mechanisms in place, but you have ensured that management is committed to the oversight and the improvement of that entire program. So management signs off on that risk assessment. They're involved in the risk assessment. So they are, their input is what drives the controls that we put in place. They are signing security policies. They are making sure that from the top down, everyone understands that this is a vital part of our organization. This is part of your service. If you take in data or if you provide a critical service to your customers, part of that service, whether you say it or not, is that I'm going to secure this data. If this is a vital system, I'm going to secure this system and make sure it's available. I mean, I'm sure everyone has heard by now about the Colonial Pipeline breach that took down the pipeline for almost a week. That is part of the goal of CMMC, is to make sure organizations have the controls in place so that if a breach occurs, they can either stand up their systems from backups, or they have the ability to stop the breach before it becomes system-wide. So what we do is we take that, we take that framework-based gap assessment and we roll it into the program no matter where you are. You can go, next slide. Sorry, Chris. So these are our MCCP core services. And again, the design, implement, manage. The design is the security framework and risk assessment that basically gives you your list of here's everything you're doing great, here's everything you need work on. That will culminate in a risk register, and that will be what your executives are looking at on a monthly, quarterly basis, and making sure that your security programs are moving forward and being implemented as they've decreed. Now, things happen. You may not always be able to get to a service, or you may not be able to get to a program. That's okay. The whole point of oversight and the whole point of having a risk-based program is that you are monitoring, you're able to adjust as new threats or new opportunities arise. So there, you want to make sure that you have that design, you have that management buy-in. Once we go to the implementation, we're mapping your processes and controls in our compliance portal. So I'm sure everyone here that has been through an audit has gone through the spreadsheet game, where everyone passes around a spreadsheet of here's all the things that last year we told the auditor we're going to do. Did everyone do them this year? Because the auditor is going to be here in 3 months. That approach is the old way. We have a compliance portal that will map all of your controls to a single standard or to multiple standards if you have multiple compliance requirements in security and privacy, and will attach tasks, owners, technology, so that you know this is the requirement, this is the person who's actually responsible for it, this is the systems they go in and actually go in to perform that control. And this is how often they're supposed to do it. Did they do it this month? Did they do it this quarter? It gives you a real-time view of how your security program is operating. We do policy review and development. Every security standard requires policies. You want to make sure that they are mapped to your controls and they are available to your employees. We do audit liaison. So if you are going through a particularly large audit, we can act as your compliance department and interface with the auditors directly. CyberLorica, which is our SIM and BSOC service. We do internal, external vulnerability assessments and penetration tests, and web application penetration tests. So that's, once we get done with that implement stage, you have a program that is now ready to run. The managed phase is where, on an ongoing basis, we're going into that compliance portal. We're making sure that the audit artifacts are being generated as needed. We're implementing cybersecurity awareness training. Almost every compliance standard out there requires that you train your employees to be aware of cybersecurity attacks, ransomware, things like that, because that is how you're going to get breached. The easiest way to breach an organization is through an email service. We do the CyberLorica monitoring. So after we set up the SIM, we will tune it and monitor it on a 24/7 ongoing basis. And then we do vulnerability scanning as a component of the patch management process for our customers as well. Next slide. So here are the core program benefits. You have compliance and cybersecurity in one program. A lot of organizations now have a security department that is implementing 4 or 5, maybe even 10 different solutions, from scanners to monitoring. Now they're supposed to do it according to, let's say, NIST 853, ISO 27001. It's not just that you have that security mechanisms in place. Do you have, is access to it restricted? Is it assigned to someone who is competent to actually run that system? Where is it configured securely? Who gets the alerts if that system detects something? It's not just implementing the security mechanism, it's the compliance process around it. We obviously have a 24/7 SOC with a failover SOC in Las Vegas, and our primary SOCs in Tampa, Florida. We also monitor the compliance on a 24-hour basis. So your compliance and your security are in one program. If there's a security breach versus a compliance issue, we detect them both. We have an entire team of compliance and cybersecurity experts. So we have our SOC, which is located in Tampa. Again, we have a failover in a hot site in Vegas. We have our professional services team who runs our vulnerability management and scanning technologies. So they do all our vulnerability assessments. Vulnerability is such a hard word to say. Vulnerability assessments and penetration tests for network, for application, for social engineering. It's very important to hit that people layer. Continuous compliance attestation. So if you're an organization that needs, your board is asking every 3 months, where are we at? How compliant are we with SOC 2? Are we 90%? Are we 85%? That's an impossible question to ask unless you are constantly monitoring your controls. With our compliance portal, at any given time, our dashboard shows your overall compliance with those standards overall and individually. Everything is wrapped into one fee. Sorry about that, Chris. But also everything is wrapped into one fee. So you're able to use OpEx budgets instead of CapEx, which a lot of our customers appreciate. So MCCP works for any cybersecurity or compliance standard, any privacy standard. However, we wanted to focus on CMMC even before the pipeline issue. Because CMMC is really coming to the forefront in terms of federal government vendors now being required to comply with this third-party attestation framework. So the CMMC model it's a compliance standard. It's built off of NIST 800-171, and it is designed for federal agencies to ensure that the vendors that they select are going to protect FCI and CUI. FCI is federal contract information. CUI is controlled unclassified information. So federal contract information is if you're a vendor from for a state or a federal agency, and during the contract process they provide you with some sensitive data, that's FCI, federal contract information. You're not providing a service, but just through the contracting process now have sensitive data. CUI is once you're providing a service, any data that is being collected by the organization from the federal agency that is deemed sensitive is CUI. And this entire program is protecting that CUI. So it has a list of domains which have controls in them. They call them practices in CMMC, but if you see practice, just think about a control. However, the extra step CMMC goes through is they want to make sure that your security program is maturing and it's not just in place. So it also has processes and levels of maturity. There's 5 levels of maturity based on how well you manage and report those control activities. We can go to next slide. And these are the process progressions. So depending on whether you just take federal contract information in or you take in CUI, there are different levels that the federal agency is going to require you to be compliant with. So level 1 is just performed, meaning that you have to show a third-party assessor that you are performing in 17 controls, access control mainly, that you are removing terminated employees from your systems during the termination process, things like that. Level 1 doesn't even require policies and procedures. For any organization that's actually accessing CUI, you're going to need level 3 or above. And level 3, the processes mean at level 3, your processes are managed. And what does that mean? That means you have policies in place, you have procedures, and you have plans in place. So a plan is kind of like a mini program over one area of your cybersecurity. So your BCDR plan, should include your controls, should reference your policies and process, but the plan includes all the personnel that are required to carry out this plan, all the example instances where this plan needs to be executed. How do we actually execute the plan? And then how do we implement lessons learned to improve the plan? So you're managing that process on an ongoing basis and improving it. And at the program level, that's what CMMC wants you to do as well. So each practice is documented. So in our compliance portal, that would cover that. We'd have the documentation of the personnel that is required to carry it out, all the required systems, how often it's supposed to be done, and then that person can be assigned tasks and actually complete them in our compliance portal. Level 4 and 5 just increase the number of controls. Level 3 is 113 controls, I believe. So it requires you not only to have more security mechanisms in place, but have the oversight around them. And that's what the DoD and the CMC program is trying to get to, is they understand that if you're starting from square one, it's going to take you some time to get up to a level 3 type of system on your own. So they're giving you steps to get there. You can go next slide, please. So we've gone through this a few times, but for the CMMC, we want to make sure we follow this, because this is actually what CMMC requires. You don't just go in and say, okay, well, we need vulnerability scanning, we need SIM and VSOC, and we need endpoint protection. I mean, you do need them, but you need to make sure that you're implementing everything based on a risk-based approach. So that design phase is very important. Even if you have everything in place right now and it's working properly, a C3PAO auditor would come in. The first thing they're going to do is ask you for your risk assessment. How do you know everything that you've implemented is what you need? That's the first thing they're going to ask you. So you need that design phase. You need the risk assessment. You need to show you did your due diligence before you just started buying things and implementing them. The implementation phase is putting everything in place, but also putting in those plans, those policies, procedures, making sure the groundwork is laid so that as these controls and these processes are carried out, you're generating the audit artifacts needed to pass audits. If there's any errors or issues within that process, that it's being detected. If that system is compromised, there's a way to detect that. So it's not just implementing the security mechanism, it's everything surrounding that mechanism. And then third is, again, the managed phase, where on an ongoing basis, you can't just have the SIM in place. You've got to tune it. You've got to configure alarms as new types of threats occur. You may want to tighten certain alarms based on changes to your services. So let's say you're traditionally a US-based company, but now you're starting to send your personnel over to Asia or Europe or anywhere outside the US. Well, now you probably want to have more alarms around personnel logging in out from outside the US and making sure that they're the correct person. So that's the management part of that. On an ongoing basis, we can also manage your vulnerability scanning and provide you with your ongoing reports to do your patch management. Again, we can manage your security awareness training program and all the compliance portions of that in our compliance portal. You can go to next slide, please. So these are all of the CMMC practice families. They should be familiar to you if you have any experience with any control standards. All control standards are going to hit the same marks. And we're going to start with risk management. And go down from awareness all the way down to recovery. But all of these control families have to have controls mapped to them. They have to have policies, especially for level 3. You have to have a risk assessment in place. You have to be able to show an auditor that you are performing these controls, not just that you have a policy in place and someone assigned to it. So for things like awareness and training, we provide auditors with your awareness training reports, your phishing campaign results, so you can show on an ongoing basis that not only are you training your personnel, but that the ransomware and the phishing click-through rate is going down. So you're showing maturity by implementing these processes. We want to be able to show that these things are getting better as time goes on. There's also incident response, which of course we would take a very, very large role in as a SIM and BSOC provider. We provide the incident response plans as a part of MCCP. We provide the escalation procedures. We act as that first stage of analysis, and we can also do active response as well in certain instances. Access control, asset management, all of these families need to have processes in place to make sure that you're generating audit artifacts to pass the CMMC assessment. Go to the next slide. So here's the timeline that we put together for a standard organization that's starting from scratch, that wants to get to an MCCP program. With Tech Data and Abacode, it's possible to do in 12 months, depending on, there's some mitigating factors depending on the size of the organization, the number of services you want certified, the complexity of the networks and the systems. But again, it'll start with a security. We start with the portal implementation and the security framework and risk assessment. We want to make sure we're doing everything in that compliance portal, so all the data is captured, and that's your platform for which off to build your entire program. You do your initial vulnerability assessments as well. So our risk assessments include the process piece and the technology piece. So we do a vulnerability scan as well, so that you have your technical vulnerabilities along with your process risks. We do our first QBR to make sure that, not only are we addressing your security concerns, but we are ahead of the game in terms of any business changes that are occurring. Are you expanding to a new service? Are you planning on moving from on-prem to the cloud? All these affect your security mechanisms. We need to make sure we stay on top of that. So that first 6 months is going to be risk assessment, policy procedure development, establishment of those processes, making sure the executive management and the personnel that are performing the duties understand their role, understand what we're doing, and are comfortable with those processes. And then again, we have another vulnerability scan. We do those at least quarterly, although CMMC actually requires monthly vulnerability scans. So depending on the compliance standard, depending on the business that you're in, this can be adjusted for the requirements, but this is a standard how usually a first year goes for MCCP. Now you see the cybersecurity awareness training happens year round. We are sending out small requirements for watching videos. We're testing, we're performing phishing campaigns monthly. And again, obviously on top, the CyberLorca managed service obviously is 24/7. But this is the flow of a standard MCCP core implementation, and usually about 12 months for you to get to that managed stage. All these control families are covered and the systems are implemented. We might be able to actually shave a couple months off of that, though, depending on the size of your organization. So I know the first CMMC assessments are happening this year. Of course, those are only level 1 and they're provisional. But if time is of the essence for another audit, we can accelerate this as well. Then we do next slide. So, like I said, the reason for MCCP is to integrate compliance and security, because they're integrated whether that's reflected in your documentation or not. You have to set up your security service as a part of your compliance program. You have to make sure that your security technology is set up to alert personnel when when something is detected, that you have the right personnel in your escalation trees, that you have the right plans in place, that you're testing your BCDR and IR plans on an annual basis, that you understand the requirements of availability when you are looking at things like cloud storage, backups. Do you need a hot site, or can you restore off of backups? Well, that depends on the type of service that you provide. If it's a colonial pipeline, no, you need you need failover. We can't wait 6 days for that pipeline to get back online. However, if you have let's say a legal service that maybe an employee doesn't need to get into right this minute, maybe you can your BCDR plan can be restoring off of backups after 4 or 5 hours. It really depends on your needs, which again, that comes from the risk assessment. Your key stakeholders should go in and say, hey, this is a critical application. It cannot go down. It needs to be up 24 hours a day. That gives you your requirements for going out and now looking for your availability services. So like I said earlier, our compliance portal will map multiple frameworks together. So we enter in one control, we enter in one policy, and it automatically maps to every responding control and other frameworks as you have them. There's privacy and security frameworks in there, and we can map them all together and give you one pane of glass to look at all of your security compliance initiatives and your posture. Okay, we do next slide. And just a little bit more of an overview of Abacode. As I said, we are a full service cybersecurity and compliance organization provider. And we do believe we're the first that has put a program together formally in a manner that covers all of your cybersecurity and your compliance requirements for your security and compliance standards in one throat to choke. We start with the risk assessment. By the time we're done, you don't have to call anybody else unless there's operational concerns that need to be implemented. But by the time we're done, you have your program in place, your policies, procedures, and your technology. Like I said, we have a 24/7 SOC here in Tampa and another one in Las Vegas. We do implement Alien Vault, but we're SIM agnostic, and we're solution agnostic. On the vulnerability scanning side, we use Qualys and Tenable. We have several different options in terms of SOC. So depending on, again, the services that you provide and your restrictions, some compliance requirements and some organizations can't send SIM data out to a third party for processing because of the metadata in there may be, let's say, high trust or FedRAMP or something like that. So you have specific requirements for your SIM. You need an on-prem or an in-environment SIM running. We take that all into consideration and provide you with the best SIM for your requirements. So we obviously do intrusion detection, and we have some managed compliance services on top of that. Anything security and compliance we can provide in one provider. Sorry, Chris, go ahead. And probably as a salesperson, my favorite part about this is the packaging, which makes this a lot easier. Instead of you have to buy 20 to 30 things to be compliant with CMMC, with ISO 27001, with FedRAMP. You can buy them all with one package. So we price the packages based on the size of the organization, but once we price that out, risk assessment, policies, procedures, plans, control documentation, standing up the portal, security awareness training, scans, all the way down to the 365, 24/7 monitoring, you get it all at one monthly rate. And as you add on, let's say you didn't need web application vulnerability, web application penetration testing because you didn't have any web apps, but you stood one up for your customers, you add that on. If you need you need forensics, incident response, that's part of the core package, but we can add that on for, we can compartmentalize this and change this in and out depending on what you already have. Because again, we want to work with your strengths. We want to, if you already have a good security awareness training program, we don't want to take money from the budget to put that up, and then we want to make sure you're spending your dollars where they need to be spent. So that's all I have. Chris, if you want to take it back.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so really powerful. I was jotting down notes feverishly. Hey, forgive me, everybody, for advancing the slides at the wrong times. My mouse takes a life of its own. We don't have a lot of time for questions, but I wanted to pop a few questions out there before I kind of get into how tech data can help. One is I want to make sure the audience is clear on the differentiation between MCCP, which is the Managed Cybersecurity Compliance Program offered by Abacode. So think of it as a MSSP on steroids with the compliance piece added to it. And then CMMC, which is the federal standard, right, for suppliers. I like the fact that you say you can meet where they are, because as I was looking at the attendee list today, I noticed we've got a really nice mix of brand new to security partners that are trying to figure out how they can participate in this business, and others that deliver some of the services you're already delivering, right? Pen testing, vulnerability assessments, and maybe they're looking to add compliance as a service as an adjunct to what they're doing today. And I love the fact that you've already kind of dealt with that there's definitely meet them where they are, right? And a place to do things for each other. And then one quick question, and I'll get into how tech data can help and how you can consume these solutions in just a second. Let me actually do that real quick, and then I'll ask my additional questions, maybe some from the audience as well. So let me get my batteries fading. So if you're new to security and all of this is just a lot, right? Wanted to draw your attention to our Practice Builder program. I know a lot of folks are in that program. They're gaining huge value from that program. So if you're just trying to figure out how to start up a security practice and you're a VAR or an MSP looking to add security to that business, Tech Data has invested in the Digital Practice Builder program. Very powerful and supported by a team of consultants that can help you to navigate through this program. So check it out there. You can see the link at the bottom. Go ahead and register with your Tech Data account number and sign up for that if you wanted to partake in that. The other thing I wanted to point out is, of course, our SPI tool, Solution Product Inventory tool. So from a product and controls perspective, kind of switching gears a little bit, this helps you to navigate all of the products that Tech Data has in our portfolio today, and which will be enhanced with our upcoming merge with Synex. So if you're hearing this for the first time, make sure to Google that. We're excited about that. But for today, you can take a look at our Solution Product Inventory tool and then search by category or security control and back into vendors and products and services. So very, very powerful. Also, honorable mention to our cyber range. So this is something you guys can monetize as well in our partner community for training and demonstration. We've got a lot of different technologies in there. Check it out at cyberrange.techdata.com. And then also click on About Us and take the virtual tour and see what that's all about and how you can monetize from that. So here's a few links. We've got the Practice Builder, the SPI tool. Everybody will get a copy of today's presentation in PDF format as well as a recording. And the last thing I wanted to point out is, how do you monetize this? Where do you get started? You'll see on the screen there, security services at techdata.com. That's your starting point. So as you look at this service from Abacode, the MCCP service, you might be saying, hey, I need a scoping call. I need to understand speeds and feeds and more about, portals and multi-tenancy and how that all works. Security services at techdata.com is the starting point. Now, we offer a cost-neutral engagement with you. So whether you go through them or us, if you go through Tech Data, it's obviously in your Tech Data terms and conditions. It might help you to retire certain targets, et cetera, with Tech Data as well. So we've got a great team that's able to support you on these initiatives. We can set up and loop in the folks over at Tech Data as well. Over at Abacode as well. And then one last question, and maybe I'll, for a couple, I see we have about 5 minutes here. We've got time for just a few questions, but I want to introduce everybody to Greg Chevalier. He is the Senior Vice President for Partner Management. Greg, are you out there?
Yeah, Chris, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, one quick question. Is this available in Canada? Do you know? I think we've got some attendees from Canada today.
Yeah, we actually, we deliver the service on a global basis. So not only North America, but we have a heavy presence of the service being delivered in Latin America as well as Europe. But we have global reach with the service that Brian went through, in particular the MCCP package and the VSOC offering.
Wonderful. Thank you. And let's see, we have, there was a question asked and answered from one of our attendees, James. I think that was asked and answered about if you're not a prime, and I'm just going to restate it in a few minutes here. If you're not a prime contractor to the DoD, do I still need to worry about this? Greg, you want to answer that for the rest of the audience real quick?
Yeah, so at MCCP, the Managed Cybersecurity Compliance Program, that's an overarching program that supports multiple types of frameworks underneath it. Brian, by example, took you through how we apply MCCP in its phases to the DoD contractors using the CMMC framework.
Yep.
But there's a high probability that customers out there have alternate frameworks that they have to abide by, such as HIPAA for healthcare or PCI for retail, the NIST standard. And what we've seen is that it's no longer just about the regulatory industries. Cybersecurity frameworks and compliance, it's become a condition of doing business, regardless of what industry you're in or what good or service that you deliver. And so that MCCP program is overarching to multiple types of frameworks.
Got it. Awesome. Can you provide, we have an attendee that asked, can you provide examples of ways you've adapted your service to your customers' environments? Maybe over the next 60 seconds here.
Yeah, absolutely. The key is we meet them where they are. So we've got customers that perhaps did an internal risk assessment. We will take those artifacts and that data. We will build from there in the compliance portal, and then we'll continue to deliver the program from there. We have a lot of tech data partners on the call that might deliver some of the services, such as pen testing or vulnerability management. And we will factor those services continue to be delivered by the tech data partner into the overarching program. And then we'll put that into the compliance system as a required cadence or schedule as delivered by the tech data partner.
Got it. So if I'm a security practice leader at one of my tech data partners tuning in today, boy, I'm kind of like salivating at this, right? How do I provide governance, risk, and compliance as a service augmented by the high profit services that I'm delivering myself, and then the flexibility of going through tech data and having you guys kind of meeting us where we are. It couldn't be better. So wow, super exciting. I really like the flexibility. I mean, unbelievable. The portal, the graphic display, I'm sure that, that's available not only for the reselling partner, but potentially even for the end user's IT department as well, right, to understand where they sit. So there's always a lot of questions about, SIM access and ticketing and, branding of portals and stuff like that. And that's where, guys, you can reach out to security services at techdata.com, request a meeting. We'll set up a scoping call between Tech Data, yourselves, and Abacode and figure out that right balance between the services you deliver today and the ones that Abacode can bolt onto it. Again, all at cost neutrality. So I think we are probably about maybe 60 seconds away from wrapping it up. Let's see. One last question, tough one here. Let's see what you think. Is there any sort of proof of concept, kind of try it before you buy it solution around MCCP?
Yeah, it really applies to CyberLorica, the heart of the solution. And for qualified situations, we can put in CyberLorica as a proof of value.
Yep.
And start to discover what risk and vulnerabilities exists immediately on that client network as we're proving out the capabilities of CyberLoRca.
Got it. So I like to use it as a torch in a cave, right? Illuminating all the craziness that's going on on the walls, right? With the spiders crawling around there. So yeah, nice lightweight setup that provides high value as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks everybody for joining. Hopefully you got your questions asked and answered. Security services at techdata.com is the next step. We look forward to hearing from you to explore this capability. So with that, be on the lookout for the PowerPoint and the recording, and we'll wrap it up. Thanks everybody for attending today, and thank you Brian and Greg for your valuable insights and presentation. Really enjoyed it. Super interesting. All right, take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
Chris.
All right, bye-bye.